So excited that you're here. I love Tuesdays. I love with you guys on Tuesdays. And if you're watching me not on a Tuesday, I still love hanging out with you. So today we're talking about the root cause of heart disease. It's a biggie. It's the number one killer in America. And the question is it in your future? And if you have a family history of it, does this mean that it has to be part of your future? Does this mean you're destined to have heart disease? And also, if you don't have heart disease in your family, does this mean that you could walk out scot-free, that there's no issues there for you? The answer is no to both, because genes kind of load the gun, but the environment is what pulls the trigger. 90% of chronic disease and unhealthy aging has to do with our environment and not our genes. So just because you have a family history of it doesn't mean you're destined to have heart disease, but also just because you don't have a family history of it doesn't mean that you're in the clear. You want to act on all of this before it's too late. And when it comes to heart disease, your lifestyle is the single most important thing. Acting now not only saves you later, but the things you need to do to prevent heart disease also make you feel great and makes you reverse aging and all that good stuff right now. So even if you're not worried about your heart, doing all the things I'm going to tell you about today are actually going to make you feel better. And so today we're going to talk about the cause of heart disease. And of course, I'm going to give you lifestyle advice, what to do to keep your heart healthy. But as always, I have to let you know how to reach me and my team, because we're awesome and you're going to want to talk to us. So if you're watching us on Facebook, drop the word live if you're watching us live, or drop the word replay if you're watching us on replay. Either way, let us know you're here. At any point on any platform, if you type the word change, we will send you the show notes. If you're watching me on YouTube, if you're not, go watch me on YouTube. It's the New Method by Dr. E. Don't forget to like and subscribe. If you're listening to us on the podcast, I'm wearing a really cool red sweatshirt that matches my red stethoscope, and I'm very excited about it. That's the only thing you're missing. The rest of the information is awesome. And if you're not already following us on Instagram, you should be. But also follow us on TikTok. It's actually different stuff on each platform, so you'll be immersed in all things Dr. E. And as always, share this with the people that you love so that they can become the game changers in their life. And if you haven't figured out already, my name is Efrat Lamondre, and everyone calls me E. And I invented the new method where we empower people to realize that their symptoms are not in their head, because you always knew there was a better way. So join the conversation wherever you are. Send us a message. Let us know you're here. Ask us your questions. We're going to answer. So let's jump in. Heart disease. Let's talk about the root cause. It's going to surprise you what the root cause is. And, if you're one of those people who know about it until it affects you or your family, this is your wake-up call. And for those of you who are worried about it, I'm going to break it down for you so you can figure out what to do next. And at the end of this, I'm going to tell you 4 things that you actually need to do to be at low risk for heart disease. And believe it or not, only 3% of Americans are actually doing these 4 things. Let's find out if you're one of those 3%. So let's talk about cholesterol, because everyone thinks heart disease, cholesterol. It's got to be cholesterol. So is it cholesterol? Well, yes and no. Of course, nothing's that easy, right? So cholesterol, just to kind of simplify it, is a waxy substance that your body needs to make vitamins and hormones. But too much of it can cause plaque buildup in your arteries. Every year, you go to your doctor's office and get your cholesterol checked out, and we get these numbers that are down here: the total cholesterol, the HDL, the LDL, right? These are the numbers that we're looking for. And you get this general sense that as long as your HDL is high and your good cholesterol is high and your bad cholesterol is low, then you're probably in good shape. But is that really enough? Is that test really enough? And it turns out that it's not enough. It turns out that what's really important is something called particle size. And I know you hear background noise probably right now because my office is super busy, so I'm sorry for that, but it's just because we're super popular. So back to us. So we need to talk about something called particle size. It's not enough to just talk about the total, the HDL, and the LDL. We really have to talk about particle size. So particle sizes. Imagine that cholesterol is like a bunch of balls. And if the cholesterol is big and airy, like a beach ball, it bounces around the arteries and it won't do too much damage. However, if the cholesterol is tiny and dense, like a golf ball, then it can stick inside the crevices of the arteries and starts to build plaque. So it's not enough to just talk about cholesterol. We have to talk about what type of cholesterol, okay? Big and airy and fluffy is good. It doesn't hurt the arteries. Small, tiny golf balls is bad because it sticks into the crevices, okay? So just keep that in mind for a second. So, for example, a lot of times I have older, really thin women coming into the practice who've never smoked, who never had high blood pressure, and their cholesterol is elevated, 250, 300. So it seems that if their cholesterol is high, that they're at high risk for heart disease, right? Just based on that. But when we look at the particle size, it's a different story. We notice that for these patients, some of these patients, that their cholesterol particle size are large and airy. So even though their total cholesterol is 250 or 300, they're not necessarily at heart disease risk because it's not the small, dense kind. And on the other hand, I might have a patient, an obese patient, who maybe doesn't lead a healthy lifestyle, and their cholesterol is borderline. Like, let's say their LDL is somewhere between 100 to 130. And you'd say, oh, you're good to go. I'll see you next year. But then when you do particle size, you find out that his cholesterol is all filled with small, tiny golf ball sized particles. And so that 100 to 130 now becomes much more important than that 250, 300 because of the particle size. So it's not enough to just know about the cholesterol total or the cholesterol LDL or HDL. It's really important to ask for particle size test. And that's a regular test. Quest does it, LabCorp does it. So super easy to do. Here's the next thing. It turns out that it's not just cholesterol. I know we worry about cholesterol, and I'm not telling you not to worry about cholesterol. Figure out your particle size. But it's not just cholesterol, because cholesterol together with inflammation is the big deal. Inflammation is what takes cholesterol and moves it to that next level, which is why if you're going to test for cholesterol, you actually have to test for something called CRP, because it turns out 50% of people who have heart attacks have normal cholesterol. It's not just the cholesterol, because inflammation is the thing that turns the cholesterol and makes it an issue. So CRP is called C-reactive protein, and it's a measure of inflammation. So you want to get that cholesterol, you want to get the particle size, and then you want to get CRP, because inflammation is what takes it to the next level. So what inflammation does is it does something called it oxidizes the cholesterol. Without getting really technical, if you're bored, I did a TikTok on it about what oxidizing means. But what it really means, just think of it as rusting. So now you have this golf ball sized particle stuck in the crevice of an artery, and then you rust it, you oxidize it with inflammation. And now the cholesterol takes a whole new meaning and creates a whole new risk factor. So this shows that people with high cholesterol without inflammation, high cholesterol, no inflammation, are actually less at risk than people with so-so cholesterol with high inflammation. And of course, if you're someone who has high cholesterol and high inflammation, you're at the highest risk. And there are ways to reduce inflammation, which is why we have to work on reducing inflammation. Because if you know by now, if you've watched any of my lives, it's all about reducing inflammation. Inflammation is everything. And some of you may be familiar with a medication called statins, which people are being given for cholesterol. And I'm not telling you that, I'm just saying that the way it works is not just in reducing cholesterol, it's actually a strong anti-inflammatory. So the medication for cholesterol understands that inflammation is the culprit. So now we have to talk about, okay, what are the causes of inflammation? What is actually causing this? If I have cholesterol and my CRP is high, how did I get this way? And remember, I said 50% of people with heart attacks have normal cholesterol. 50% of people with heart attacks have normal cholesterol. That means there's something else. It turns out that a higher predictor of heart issue is not the cholesterol, It turns out, let me just put this on for you. It turns out that it is more about pre-diabetes or diabetes. People with pre-diabetes or diabetes are more likely to have a heart attack or stroke because their diets cause inflammation, which ignites that whole cholesterol plaque system that we were just talking about. Cardiovascular disease, heart disease, is actually an inflammatory process. And cholesterol is part of the process. Diabetes and pre-diabetes is the fire in that process. So while we're taught for so many years to walk away from the fried, greasy foods, and that's not wrong. You should stay away from the fried, greasy foods. It turns out that that's not the whole story when it comes to heart disease. It also is about staying away from the sugar and the starches. So let's talk for a moment about what happens to many of you or people that you know. You go, you find out you have cholesterol, you find out you have diabetes or someone that you know. And what do you get? You get medicine. You get cholesterol medicine and you get diabetes medication. It's not wrong. I always want to tell you, I'm not telling you not to take your medication. Take your medication. But what happens is the patient takes the medication, the numbers go down, and then the patient feels, oh, look at this. My numbers went down, and they keep eating the cheeseburger and the French fries and the desserts. And so even though the numbers went down, the lifestyle that creates inflammation is still there and still causing havoc. So there's a danger there when we focus just on the numbers and we watch those numbers come down and we don't realize that that lifestyle, which keeps producing inflammation, is actually still keeping us at risk. And remember, I'm not saying not to take the meds. I'm just saying it's more than just chasing the numbers. It's about addressing the root cause, which of course is inflammation. Other causes of inflammation that we have that can affect heart disease: belly fat. If you or someone that you know has a lot of belly fat, even if the other parts of their body is thin, it is a risk factor for inflammation. It is a risk factor for heart disease. Why? Because when you have belly fat, that means you have fat coating the organs, called visceral fat, which means the fat covers the organs. And the fat that covers the organs causes inflammation. It's called adipose cytokines, and it causes inflammation. So reducing the fat around the gut is a key factor in reducing inflammation, and it also changes the shape of the LDLs. So just by reducing the belly fat, those golf balls now become beach balls. So it's a huge deal to remove that belly fat. Another cause of inflammation, you should know by now if you watched any of my lives and my talks, microbiome. Microbiome is a huge contributor to inflammation. For those of you who don't know, if this is your first video you're watching with me, a microbiome is the balance of good and bad bacteria in your gut. And as we already know, people with insulin resistance, people with diabetes, people with cardiovascular disease, their microbiome is off. But specifically, studies were done that show people with microbiome, with people with diabetes and prediabetes and heart issues will have a very specific microbiome that is different than people who are healthy. The microbiome over here is lacking certain bacteria and has an overgrowth of other bacteria. And the microbiome over here is healthier. So there's a big connection between the bacteria that is in your belly and diabetes and heart disease. So to fix the inflammation, to fix the heart, you also have to fix the microbiome. So I think you get by now that it's more than just cholesterol. It's about sugar. It's about starch. It's about anything that causes inflammation. And now, as always, as promised, I have to tell you how to fix it. How do we fix this? Let's talk about it, because you know I'm going to give you answers. I'm not here just to scare you. I always have to give you answers. So first and foremost, you have to change your food. This is not about weight loss. This is not about looking cute in a bikini. This is about changing your nutrition so you could change the type of cholesterol that you have, reduce your insulin resistance, and reduce your inflammation. The foods that you eat, not only is it raising your cholesterol, but it's creating those golf ball size ones, the not good ones. It's creating pre-diabetes, insulin resistance, and it's creating inflammation. So changing your food is about reversing the risk factors for heart disease. Decrease your saturated fat and your trans fat. Decrease the sugar. Adding plants, like eat the rainbow. And I don't mean Skittles. You have to eat the rainbow. You have to eat different color vegetables, different color fruit. The more colors on your plate, the better. Add good fats. It's really not an apple a day. It really should be It should be an avocado a day. And of course, consider intermittent fasting. And if you haven't watched it, watch my video on intermittent fasting. I break it down and make it easy. You have to sleep. Sleep is not just about feeling rested. And of course, I did a talk on that. Find it on the playlist. But it's not just about feeling rested. It's about reducing inflammation. And I want you to get that inflammation is the root cause of heart disease. Exercise regularly. Again, this is not exercise to fit into a wedding dress. This is not exercise to look cute for the summer. This is about reducing inflammation. Exercise, not only does it reduce inflammation, but once again, it takes those golf ball sized particles and turns them into beach balls, into light and airy sized particles. So it's a big deal. And it goes without saying that you need to quit smoking and reduce your alcohol. Manage your stress levels. Chronic stress is not just an issue here. It's an issue for your heart. It causes inflammation. And then, of course, when you're stressed, you don't sleep well and you don't eat well. And then you're stuck in that loop. And remember, if anyone listening, loneliness and isolation are stressors. So if you're lonely or isolated, please reach out for mental health. If you know someone, please reach out to them, because that's a huge stressor and it's a huge cause of inflammation. I always like to let you know which supplements to take, because that seems to be the question everyone asks me. Always remember, supplements are not instead of lifestyle. They're on top of a good lifestyle. They're part of this complete breakfast. So omega-3. Omega-3 is magic for the heart. It helps lower the LDL. It helps increase the HDL. It's awesome. You can either do it through fish oil, but for those of you who don't eat animal products, you can get it through flaxseed. CoQ10. Remember, like all about the oxidizing, the rusting of those golf ball sized particles. CoQ10 helps against that oxidization. And red yeast rice helps reduce cholesterol. It's kind of magical also. Now, while I listed a whole lot of things that you could do here, there are 4 basic things that everyone can do. And if you just do these 4, you can reduce your risk for heart disease. But only 3% of Americans do it. 3% of Americans do this. And this is what it is. Don't smoke. Get the minimum amount of exercise, which is 150 minutes of exercise a week. Okay. Eat a whole foods diet and have a healthy body fat percentage. Don't smoke. 150 minutes a week of exercise. Eat a whole foods diet and have a healthy body fat percentage. These are the 4 things that will minimize your risk for heart disease. And as I said, only 3% of Americans have this, and that is terrifying. So consider optimizing that. If you're someone who already does those 4 things, amazing. We should talk about optimizing it. And for those of you who haven't gotten to those 4 things, let's help you get there and get those 4 things under control. So just to recap, recapping is my favorite part. If you don't know by now, there's a GIF or a GIF about me out there. Look it up. So just to recap, it's not just about cholesterol. Heart disease is about particle size of your cholesterol, inflammation, huge part of inflammation. And part of the inflammation is the sugar. And of course, the lifestyle, the sleeping, the exercise, and the supplements. And I know I tell you a lot of things and it gets confusing. So if you want to work with me and my team, just reach out to us at The New Method. Don't forget that new is spelled with a K in case you're listening and not watching. So The New Method or thenewmethod.com, on any platform, we are ready to work with you because you always knew there was a better way. I will see you guys next week. I hope you enjoyed this video about heart health. And if you did, don't forget to like and subscribe. And don't forget to check out our video on the gut-skin connection. It will blow your mind.